can multiply two numbers together using arrays. So we're going to be using arrays today to help us figure out what our multiplication problem is and how to solve for it. So you have definitely seen arrays before, you've worked with them before. Arrays are just a representation of numbers. So sometimes we use circles or dots, sometimes we use X's, sometimes we use squares. Sometimes your teacher might say, make your own array, and you can really pick anything you want. You can draw little stars, little triangles, diamonds, any shape or figure that's easy for you to draw over and over again. So we're going to be practicing using arrays today. Let's take a look. We have two questions that we're going to start off with, just breaking down what arrays are and how they can help us. And then we're going to kind of make some up of our own and solve for multiplication problems that way. So a couple very important things when you're looking at an array. You need to make sure that you know what the rows are representing and then how many are in each row, right? Or the columns that we have in this array. So our first question that you can see here is how many rows are in the array. Let's remember that rows go side to side. They go left to right or right to left. They go side to side. So when I'm looking for how many rows are in the array, I'm going to count sideways. How many groups do I have in that top? I have one group right here. I have another group or another row right here. That's two groups or two rows. I have a third row here and a fourth row here. So I have 4 rows in this array. I encourage you right now just to be watching. If you'd like to write these in your notebook, you can, but you'll have plenty of time to make your own arrays in this video. All right, so now we need to figure out how many columns are in the array. How many columns are in the array? Or what I'm really asking you to do is tell me how many dots are inside of each array. So columns go up and down. They go up and down. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 columns. Now, I want you to take a look because the columns are actually going to show you how many are inside of each of the rows. So if you take a look, and I'm going to keep my numbers, but I'm going to erase for a second. And I'm just going to circle my rows again. So I have 4 rows. And if I want to know how many are inside of each row, that's where I think about my columns. I can just count how many are in each row. So I know these are equal groups. That's so important with multiplication, is that we're talking about equal groups. They have an equal number inside of each group. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots inside of each row. That's where I got that number 6 from, right? When we were thinking about the columns as well. That's where that connection should be made. So if I want to know how many dots are in the entire array, if I want to I can sit and count. I can do 6 plus 6 more here, plus another 6 in this row, plus another 6 in this row. And I could do 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. And that would tell me how many I have in this entire array because I have 4 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. And inside of each group, there are 6 dots. So I could just use my repeated addition. However, we are switching gears to multiplication, but we know that repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. I can do a repeated addition problem and get the same answer by multiplying. So what do I multiply to figure this out? Instead of doing 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6, let's think about multiplication. How many groups did we say we have? Or how many rows do we have here? We have 4 rows, or we have 4 groups, right? So let's do 4 times how many are inside of each group, or how many are inside of each row? Show me with your fingers or shout it out. 6. Very good job. So 4 times 6 will give us the total number of dots in this array. 4 times 6. Does anybody know what 4 times 6 is? 24. Awesome job if you knew that. 4 times 6 is 24. If you want to check your work, you can go back to that repeated addition. I know that 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 6 gives me 18. And then 18 plus 6 gives me 24. So it's just kind of a way to think about this. But 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus 6 more would be 18. 18 plus 6 more gives me 24. So how many dots are in the total array? We have 24 total. That would be our product. Remember that the answer to a multiplication problem is what we call a product. Now let's take a look at this second example. Now this second example, I encourage you to go ahead and write it down in your notebook. It's a little bit of a smaller array. There's not as many dots. All right. Give everybody a second to go ahead and write that down. Or actually, you know what, just pause this video, write it down, and then unpause it when you're ready. All right, so we have the array written down in our notebooks. It says how many rows are in the array. Once again, remember, rows go side to side. So let's circle. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember that our rows are like our groups, okay? Our rows are like our groups. So I have 5 rows, or I have 5 groups here. How many are inside of each group or each row? That's going to tell me how many columns I have, right? So how many are inside of each? I have 1, 2, 3. And I can show that there's 1, 2, 3, right? You have 3 columns, which means there's going to be 3 dots in each group, 3 in each row. So if I know that I have 5 rows and I have 3 inside of each row, or that I have 5 groups and I have 3 inside of each group, how many dots are in this array? I can think about this again using repeated addition and transferring that into multiplication. So I know that I can take my number of rows, which is 5, and I can multiply it by how many are inside of each row. How many are inside of each group? We said there are 3 inside of each group. Awesome job. So 5 times 3 will give me my answer, my product of how many dots are in this array. If I'm thinking about this using repeated addition, let's just check this out for a second. If I have 5 rows and there are 3 in each row, I can do 5 plus 5 plus 5. That will show me 3 rows of 5. If I wanted to represent 5 rows of 3, I could do 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So this would be how we would show our array using repeated addition. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. That's going to tell me I'm adding up 3 5 different times. Either way I do it, I'm still going to get the same answer. We're shifting gears into multiplication now. So 5 times 3 is equal to 15. So we have a total of 15 dots in the array. Let's do a couple examples together, and then you're going to do some independent practice as well. So I'm going to slide over here, and we're going to take a look at this chart. We have a diagram, which this is going to be our array. I'm actually going to write array underneath here so that we know that this is our array or our picture, our drawing, our diagram. We're going to have a repeated addition sentence, and then we're going to think of it as a multiplication sentence as well. So let's take a look at this first example. This is your guided practice. Here is our array. Our array is made up of diamonds. It says we have 3 groups of 4. Remember, we always start with a number of rows. Rows go side to side. 1, 2, 3 groups of 4 inside of each group. So I have 4 inside of each group, which means I can add 4 add it up 3 times, 4 plus 4 plus 4, that will give me a total of 12. Or I could think to myself, I have 3 groups and there's 4 in each group. So let's multiply 3 times 4 and that will give me 12. Let's take a look here at the addition sentence. It gives us 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals 20. And we have to draw an array to represent that and then come up with a multiplication sentence. So let's think about this. Let's go back to our example up top. Our example up top showed that we had 3 groups of 4. This was one group of 4, another group of 4, and a third group of 4, right? So how many groups of 5 do we have down here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 5. So we have 4 groups of 5. Now, how could I show this with an array, with a drawing of or a diagram of some sort? Well, again, let's go back up to our examples. We know that the rows go side to side, and the rows tell us how many groups we have. So I have 4 groups with 5 in each side. So let's go ahead and draw. It's up to you. You want to draw stars, triangles, circles, whatever is best. I'm just going to draw dots. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 1 group of 5. Well, now I need 4 groups of 5. So I'm going to draw another group of 5. It's 2 groups, another group of 5. It's 3 groups, another group of 5. That's 4 groups, and last one, we have 5 in each group, and there's 4 groups. So we have, oops, I added an extra group there. I needed to erase it by accident. And that happens sometimes when we're making arrays. So just remember, however many rows you have is the number of groups. So how many groups do we have? We have 4. So I should have 4 rows. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. How many are inside of each group? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 inside of each group. So what would be my multiplication sentence then? 4 groups of 5. I have 4 groups times 5 in each group gives me a total of 20 inside of my array. 20 would be my product. Awesome. All right, let's do one more together and then we'll leave the last one for you to try at home. So our multiplication sentence they gave us is 2 times 6 equals 12. 2 times 6 equals 12. Think about how many groups or how many rows you would have. Remember, we always start with our groups or we always start with our rows. So my first number is 2. So that means I'm going to have 2 groups. And how many are going to be inside of each group? 6. 2 groups of 6. Perfect. How would I show that using repeated addition? 2 groups of 6. 2 groups of 6. Well, if I only have 2 groups with 6 in each group, that's going to be 6 plus 6. 2 groups, 1 group, 2 groups, equals 12. There's 6 in each group. And if I wanted to show this using an array, I just have to think, okay, I need 2 groups. And there needs to be 6 inside of each group. I'm going to draw stars this time. So I have 6 inside of each group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I need 2 of those because it says I have 2 groups of 6. So that's 1 group of 6. And here's my other group of 6. So you can see right here, I have 1 group of 6 stars and 2 groups of 6 stars. 6 plus 6 equals 12, or if we're thinking about multiplication, 2 times 6 equals 12. Awesome job, guys. I encourage you to go ahead and try the last one on your own. I want you to take a look at the smiley faces. Count how many rows do you have? how many are inside of each row, and then go ahead and write a multiplication sentence to represent that array. And if you want to, you can also show your repeated addition.